Global Weather Forecast News Bulletin. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Global Weather Forecast News program. It is a pleasure to be with you again in this familiar time slot. As we move into the closing days of September 2025, the weather picture across the Atlantic and the Caribbean is becoming exceptionally complex. Not only has one tropical storm already formed and begun to intensify, but another broad disturbance is also emerging with the potential to strengthen into a tropical depression or even a storm in the coming days. What makes this situation especially concerning is that these two systems are not only evolving simultaneously, but may also begin to interact with one another, creating unpredictable scenarios and raising the risk of hazardous impacts for numerous island nations, territories, and possibly even the U.S. East Coast. In today's broadcast, we will provide you with a comprehensive and detailed outlook on the two weather systems drawing widespread attention from experts and residents alike. Tropical Storm Umberto, officially named by the National Hurricane Center, and the tropical disturbance designated Invest 94L, which is already delivering heavy rainfall across parts of the Caribbean. We will examine forecast models, analyze possible scenarios, and break down the potential impacts on Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos Islands, and the broader region, including the risk of effects extending toward the United States mainland. Let us begin with the current situation of Invest 94L. According to the latest observations, Invest 94L is a broad area of showers and thunderstorms stretching from the northern Lesser Antilles to near Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Satellite imagery reveals deep convection with clusters of intense thunderstorms, producing periods of torrential rain and strong gusty winds. Wind reports from marine stations indicate gusts reaching 35 to 40 miles per hour, sufficient to create hazardous seas and locally intense downpours. In Puerto Rico, flood advisories have already been issued in multiple areas, including Vieques, where water has been rising quickly in low-lying zones. The critical factor here is the slow movement of the system, which significantly increases the flood risk. When storms linger, the same locations are subjected to hours of relentless rainfall, raising the likelihood of flash flooding and dangerous urban inundation. Authorities are advising residents to avoid unnecessary travel, monitor official updates, and stay clear of riverbanks and flood-prone areas. Meanwhile, to the east-northeast, Tropical Storm Umberto has officially taken shape. As of the latest advisory, its center is located several hundred miles east of the Leeward Islands, sustaining winds near 40 miles per hour. Satellite data shows a better defined circulation, with banding features wrapping into a developing core. Meteorologists expect Umberto to continue strengthening, with the possibility of reaching hurricane status by the weekend as it tracks northwestward over warm Atlantic waters. The concern arises because Umberto and Invest 94L are situated within relative proximity. This sets the stage for a potential Fujifara interaction, a phenomenon where two cyclones draw close enough to begin orbiting around a common point. In such cases, the stronger storm typically dominates, steering or suppressing the weaker one. If Umberto intensifies quickly, it could dictate the fate of Invest 94L, either dragging it into its circulation or inhibiting its growth. What do the forecast scenarios suggest? Meteorological models are offering two primary outcomes for Invest 94L, depending on where a surface low eventually consolidates. Scenario 1. If the center develops farther north, near Puerto Rico and the northern side of Hispaniola, 94L would likely skirt along the north coast of the island rather than crossing directly over its mountainous terrain. This path would preserve the storm's structure and allow it to move toward the Turks and Caicos and eastern Bahamas. Given the warm sea surface temperatures in this region, development could accelerate, and the system might become significantly stronger. Under this scenario, the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas could be facing widespread heavy rainfall, tropical storm force gusts, and hazardous marine conditions by late this week. Scenario 2. If the center instead forms farther south and passes directly over Hispaniola, the mountainous terrain would disrupt and weaken the system. However, once past the island, it could still reorganize over the southern Bahamas. albeit more slowly and likely with less intensity than in the northern scenario. In both scenarios, Umberto's strength and position remain the key variable. A rapidly intensifying Umberto could pull 94L into its orbit or shear it apart, while a weaker Umberto would leave the door open for 94L to maintain or regain strength. Forecast models remain divided. The American GFS model emphasizes Umberto as the dominant storm, steering it northwest toward Bermuda and leaving 94L to dissipate in the Caribbean. In contrast, the European ECMWF model allows for both storms to intensify, even hinting at the possibility of Umberto bending closer to the U.S. East Coast under the influence of a mid-latitude trough. Other models, such as ICON and HWRF, highlight a more impactful role for Invest 94L, projecting heavier effects for the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. This divergence underscores the current uncertainty. Until Invest 94L develops a well-defined surface circulation, track and intensity projections will remain unreliable. Updates over the next 24 to 48 hours will be crucial in refining these forecasts. Let us review potential impacts by region. Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, already experiencing heavy rainfall, thunderstorms, and gusty winds. The risk of flash flooding and urban flooding remains high. Residents should expect additional rain bands and localized power outages. Hispaniola, forecast rainfall totals may range from 4 to 8 inches, with locally higher amounts in mountainous areas. This raises significant concerns for landslides and river flooding, particularly in vulnerable communities. Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, regardless of the scenario, these islands face the likelihood of heavy rain, squally winds, and dangerous seas later this week. Preparations should be underway. Other areas including Jamaica, Cuba, and the southeastern U.S. coast, while direct impacts are less certain. Large swells and dangerous surf will extend well beyond the storm centers. Rip currents and coastal hazards are expected even in areas not directly in the storm's paths. Safety and preparedness guidance. Authorities urge residents across Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Hispaniola, the Turks and Caicos, and the Bahamas to monitor official updates closely. Have emergency supplies ready, avoid flood-prone zones, and secure outdoor items that could be blown about by strong winds. Mariners are strongly advised to seek safe harbor, as seas will become increasingly treacherous. Cruise and cargo operations should plan for potential disruptions. For residents of Bermuda and along the U.S. East Coast, the message for now is vigilance. While direct impacts are uncertain, the possibility of Umberto bending closer to land later in its track cannot be dismissed. In conclusion, the Atlantic Basin is entering a period of heightened activity. The coexistence of Tropical Storm Umberto and Invest 94L creates a complex situation with multiple possible outcomes. Forecast confidence will improve once 94L establishes a defined center. Until then, residents across the Caribbean and nearby regions must remain alert, stay informed, and be prepared for rapid changes. We will continue to provide timely updates as new data emerges. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Global Weather Forecast News. Please stay safe, and we look forward to being with you again in our next broadcast.